This is an ArseBrothers production. Follow us on Twitter at the ArseBrothers. Get all our content on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and SoundCloud at ArseBros. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to smash that subscribe button.
Well, better late than never, champions. It would appear that the first between 5 and 7 minutes of this podcast were recorded while nothing was being recorded. The introduction music was played. I did my mandatory non-Arsenal related, ejaculate related fucking introduction. Went nowhere. And then I asked Toby about how everything was, and he was in the middle of providing an in-depth analysis of how he's felt about the start of the season, and I proclaimed, problem, I never pressed go live. This is the ArseBrothers Rankcast, and we remain to be the most ramshackle, unprofessional, wrong button or no button pressing bunch of twats. And I think that you are all stupider for being part of this, both guests and listeners.
It's more stupid.
The fish rots from the fucking head, doesn't it, Darren?
In English, you have to say more stupid. You can't say stupider. And can I pull you up from last week? Because I listened to our wonderful podcast last week, and you kept saying debut when the word in English is debut. Okay, it's a subtle difference. But you sounded like an illiterate young man.
Thank you.
And not even that young anymore either.
No.
Only compared to me.
I don't even have that on my side anymore. I can't even say that I'm some kind of I can't even say like I think we've done like nearly 200 podcasts total as well. Like I think 150 or something last time I checked. But definitely, I am not good. I am not good at things. This is becoming evident the older I get. I'm regularly bad at things.
If my house hasn't burnt down, then I will take the reins in future. Or I will help to share the reins, shall we say, in future.
Yeah, well, chalk one more up for my wife. Definitely an idiot. Basically...
Can you introduce Toby again? Can you introduce Toby?
I can introduce Toby.
Because we haven't had Toby on for so long, and now we've got Toby on. Hello, Toby.
Well, we get him twice. We get him twice now, Darren, because we got him 5 minutes ago when we weren't recording, and we get him again now. So, Toby, we'll try and pick up where we left off. But basically, the bringing you in was in saying it was such a very pleasant way to wake up on a Sunday morning. Was it not, Toby?
It was. Well, thanks for having me back. It's good to be on, but after less than a minute, I thought, why the fuck do I bother? But in any case, so what I was saying previously that I will try and replicate now was that we got to watch the game, in Australia Sunday morning. So lovely sunny morning, coffee. And what I was saying is when the team list for Leicester came up, it didn't fill me exactly with fear. So I think a little bit less investment going on at the moment, or at least they're not going after it as much as they had done. And then, to contrast that, having a look at our team, and that starting to feel or give you a sense of excitement before a game rather than the sense of dread that we were used to for so long. And in particular, one thing that really stood out for me straight away was that not only did we look at the team sheet and look confident, saying, fuck me, like our second string or our reserves now, the bench players, you can really see multiple changeable points off the bench and interchangeable players, and also a little bit of a change of tactic as well, which isn't a step down so much from, where we were previously with your Tavareses and your Cedrics. So I approached the game with a lot less trepidation than normal. So I was quite excited.
I mean, when you consider, Darren, that last season, people like me, people like Scunny were looking at that team, and granted, these comments were made before Tommy Arsu was bought, Ben White was bought. But we were looking at that team. We were saying this team is a 9th place team, and you can really start to see the building blocks and the process as they start moving towards these short and long-term goals now. And it's heartening to look at a team sheet, Darren, and think, I'm not particularly worried about any position here.
It's pick up on something that you said last week, Max, when you almost said the results don't matter, the league table position doesn't matter. We finally have a side back that we're enthused about watching. You're waking up on a Sunday morning. I was lucky enough to go to the Emirates at the weekend, and the whole place has changed over the last. We've had a decade of misery, and the whole place has changed. You're walking up there. There's always a feeling of early season optimism when you walk up the steps going into the stadium. Always, whatever's happening in the middle of the Unai Emery era, at the first game of the season, everyone's buoyant and you're all hopeful. But there's something different there. People are singing all the way to the stadium. It's the happiest Arsenal stadium I've been to for years and years and years. And it's a breath of fresh air. And just a quick point on something that I heard on another podcast this week. Just an interesting, just to where we were and how badly run we were. Do you remember we employed Sven Mislintat, who was going to be the transfer guru? His signings, I think he made 8 or 9 signings in his small tenure with the club, and he spent about 125 million pounds of our money. All of those players have been sold now, and we recouped a total of 24 million. It just shows how bad we were 2-3 years ago, and now look where we are. We're all excited. Fabulous.
Was there one, Darren, that was under his tenure who just got back in the team from 3 years on loan?
I think he was actually before him. He may have well been one of his. He may well have been. On the stats I read, they said they'd all left the club, but maybe because he hadn't actually joined the club. Maybe that's what they're talking about.
I could be wrong.
Was Saliba a Meslintat signing? I thought Saliba was. Well, I had a feling Saliba.
Maybe he was Raul. Maybe Saliba was Raul.
I don't know. Someone in the fucking comments say some shit. I want to take you back to something that Darren said last week, which I've now forgotten what the fuck I was going to talk about, because I'm thinking about William Saliba sitting next to someone on a couch jerking off another dude. For some reason, that's still where my fucking brain goes. There it is. Toby, I want to take you or get your opinion on something Darren said last week, where he said he's unsure of where the hatred is going to come from this season. Like, there's no Ozils in the team. There's no real polarizing figures in the team. And the one really polarizing guy in the team, I thought had just about a man of the match performance. The whole team was really good, but Granit Xhaka in particular was quite good. And I thought he was really very good against Crystal Palace as well.
There will be a question in there somewhere, Toby.
So where's the division going to come from?
I'll run with it. Well, you kind of alluded to the only player that would cause division, and I kind of rolled my eyes because I thought, I'm so fucking sick of talking about the Granit Xhaka. Do you love him? Do you hate him? Do you want him to be sold? Do you want an upgrade? Just the narrative around that is just ridiculous. I've really grown to consistently appreciate the guy, and I've learned that the guy is like a fucking cockroach in a nuclear war, but in a good way. He is unkillable. And 7.5 out of 10 every game. He's a leader. He's adaptable, and he works really well with the management. It's pretty obvious. But coming back to your question, there's a lot of love, and I think that's a really good thing, and I think the players are responding to that. So I don't know if this is answering your question anymore, but I'll go off on a tangent in any case. That, the division, the hatred, the Arsenal version of clickbait and terrible journalism, that stem from whatever the fuck they're called. Save me. It's gone out of my brain.
AFTV.
Yeah, so that horrible era of, us jumping on the back of the players and all of that stuff, there seems to be this really lovely combination of youth team, youth transfer policy, a all in it together management style. I don't know whether that's believable or not, but it really looks like everyone's pulling in the one direction. Whether that's put on for the cameras, I'm not so sure. We'll wait and see. But I, in answer to your question, no, I don't see the next hatred person. But do I think that Arsenal fans are
just
cured?
waiting. Yeah.
Fuck no, I do not think they're cured at all.
I get this feeling, Toby, that there is a portion of the fan base currently who can't be vocally upset because you can't. And it happened last season. It's not by itself. It happened last season when we went on the little 10-game run and stuff like that. Like they all fucked off. And as soon as a couple of losses came in, all of the same sort of narrative started to come back again. But from speaking to people who are at the grounds, and I speak to Fergus, who's at the grounds, and Dan Potts and Darren, who's at the ground, they seem to think that has almost been ejected. That the negativity has almost been ejected from the home fan base, and that home fan base, like it or lump it, that home fan base, I've always said it, I think is a real distillate of the wider base. And if the home fan base is up and running because they are. Again, not putting value to one fan base over another fan base, but someone who pays $6 a month to watch it on Optus Sports and someone who puts their real hard-earned cash down to buy a season ticket and hold a season ticket through thick and thin, those fans ultimately are the benchmark for, I guess, what the wider feeling is. Darren, what are you feeling kind of inside the grounds as someone who is a fucking 75-year season ticket holder?
Oh, longer than
that. What are you feeling? Is that the same notion for you that you feel that is kind of the overarching feeling of the fan base, that of positivity?
I think there's three types of supporter we have. We have those who go to the ground, and actually watch them physically. We have those that turn up and watch all of the games in screenings all around the world that are just enjoying it. And I think you've got those that don't watch football in the same way that I watch football, that just criticise. They don't really get the tribalism. I don't think they really get the enjoyment. They've watched football with a negative air. Just to go back slightly, I as I say, I generally read a lot of stuff. I'm not too active on Twitter, but I was going through one of the groups that I'm a member of, and there was one long 300-page message from a guy, and it was talking about all of the good, and he ended with this is after the weekend's game. This is the only weak link in this team is Granit Xhaka. While he's in the team, we're never going to win anything. And I'm just thinking, well, I've just watched that game of football. I've just watched that game of football. Anyone who knows anything about football saw that Granit Xhaka had a superb game. He was involved,
and a great game at Palace.
Yeah, but this is directly afterwards. And if that's the sort of comment we're going to get, we are never, ever going to change.
I would be reticent to start taking Granit Xhaka's dick the whole way down the shaft and to the balls because of what we've seen in the past. We've seen Granit Xhaka do this in the past, but I think at minimum, credit where credit is due, and credit where credit is due to the manager. I said to you, Darren, in the last podcast we did, that this season was going to be a really interesting insight into whether or not Granit Xhaka had been poor, much like we could talk about some of our central defenders in times past as well. But poor because of the situations that he was put in by the players around him, the lack of Arsenal's ability to get the ball out and get the ball held up, and the fact that in those situations, Xhaka was exposed. And one thing I thought was really interesting that Arteta did in this game is he pushed him further forward. And I quite like Xhaka further forward in 8 position because I feel he's less likely to be put in high-stress positions where he is going to go and make a stupid mistake when he's in front of the halfway line.
Possibly. Can I just be a little controversial answering the question that you put to Toby? I watched that game live, and of course you don't analyse it quite so well when you're watching in amongst the emotion of the stadium. But Thomas Partey, for me, may end up being the one that the fans turn on, because I can honestly say I've watched him for a year and a half and seen him play 6 or 8 excellent games. The rest of the time, he's a little bit of a passenger. And again, it hasn't been mentioned, but you know how fans vote after games, they give their ratings. And Xhaka last season was always bottom, whether he played or not, whether he had a great game or not. Xhaka was always at the bottom of the ratings, and Partey was always top. And I'm watching the games thinking, well, that doesn't relate to what my eyes are telling me. And I've just noticed this year, looking at these rating sites, that Partey is drifting down and down that as players are getting better and have got better performances from so many people, Martinelli and Ødegaard at times, and now Jesus and Saka, of course, and all of these players, Zinchenko now, Tierney when he plays, Tomiyasu, all of these players are actually now getting really good. And Thomas Partey is dropping down that list because people are. Go on, Toby.
Can I say with the Partey thing, I thought his passing was definitely astray in the Leicester game. But I'll put something back to both of you. Is the position that Partey's playing now, a la what Xhaka was asked to do previously? So sort of more of that number 6 role, that deep lying role. Is it more of a pressurized position?
Hugely.
It's a lot more of a thankless position.
Toby, and consider
Can
this.
I finish my point? So it's a lot more of a thankless position in that, you're defensively often the last man standing. So if you're not going to chop him down or make an error, it's a high stress position. It's also high stress in terms of the passing because the spacing is different and you're also part of receiving the press. Sorry, Max.
Yes, well, consider this, right? When people break in or break through in a season to the extent that Partey did when he became fit, right? So our best part of last season coincided with Xhaka and Partey, but it really coincided with Partey getting fit and staying fit and being the metronome in the middle of the park. Well, what do you think happens when Partey comes out of the team and Arsenal go to shit? I said this to Darren last week. Some people think that there aren't 2 teams playing and that there aren't 2 coaches, and that there aren't 2 strategic outputs going on. And I just see it as, if you look at it and you say everything has to come through Thomas Partey, then you are going to fucking overload Thomas Partey. And that opens up other areas of the pitch. When you go after him and you pressure him so heavily and you make him not have the right amount of time for his passes, then you're going to start to make him look poor. What I do say is Thomas Partey, technically deep in his own box, is miles ahead of Granit Xhaka as far as his technical ability on the ball. And his best attribute really is being able to turn out and find a short pass. So I really think that's more of an indication of the fact that this season, I think coaches are going to be looking at it and say, well, how do you stop Arsenal? You stop Arsenal by stopping Thomas Partey. And that's what I was saying about Arteta. I almost think to an extent it's like, how do I get the best out of Granit Xhaka? If I'm dragging Zinchenko in from left back to basically stand next to Partey, we were essentially playing a back 3 and Zinchenko was playing a left-sided 8 in position, which is why Xhaka pushed forward so far. He's basically negating those elements.
Can I just add, by the way, before I get some abuse? When I was only answering your question when I said Thomas Partey, who do I think the fans are turned on? I mean, personally, I still hope I get those 8 or 10 really good performances I saw. I hope I see them every week because players do drift in and out of form. So it's not a negativity. It is just saying that that's where I see the fan base will start to find. Because I read another comment at the weekend that was talking, when they were being anti-Xhaka, they were saying, why doesn't El Neni get more game time? And I'm just thinking,
right?
I used to pull my hair out arguing with you, like saying you're all saying El Neni's shit when he's actually a really good, solid player. And I'm not saying he should be first choice for Arsenal, but everyone was just saying, "Oh, El Neni's shit. We've got to get an upgrade on El Neni." He comes in at the end of last season, plays extremely well, and now through not playing, he's getting better and better and better. So football fans are very fickle. Very, very fickle. And I love them all. The players,
Darren,
not the fans.
last week,
I hate the fans.
Darren, as the oldest Arsenal fan here, and Toby started supporting Arsenal a few years before me, but you said last week that Gabriel Jesus to you reminded you of an Ian Wright style player. And kind of lo and behold, other than what I thought was a tap in that maybe got a bit big on him on the back post that he hit the post with, very much played the way that you said that you thought that he would play. A really fantastic performance from him. Could have had 4, could have had 5, got 2.
Funny enough, I read everywhere at the weekend and listened to people comparing him to Dennis Bergkamp, and I think just because of that first goal that he scored was very people see that as Bergkamp-esque. However, I can't reiterate more. That was exactly the sort of goal that Ian Wright would score. Both goals were exactly the type of goal that Ian Wright would score, because he loves to dink a keeper, he loves to put it through people's legs, and yet he's always available for the tapping. And he used to chase people down like mad all the time, on his own. He'd be running around like a schoolboy at a football match, And the more I see Jesus, and don't get me wrong, Ian Wright was in a class of his own. He is superb. If he'd have joined us at the age of 20 rather than 27 or whatever it was, nobody would beat his goal scoring record. We would have gone on to wonderful things. He was an incredibly good player. And I can't tell you how good Jesus is. Watching him in the flesh for the first time, he is everywhere. If he stays fit, we have an excellent, excellent chance of outperforming anywhere that people think we're going to get to this year. He is incredible. He really is the difference, the catalyst, involved in absolutely everything.
Toby, thoughts on his first 2 games?
Well, I don't think he's anything like Dennis Bergkamp, and it got a nick.
Crap.
It got a nick, so he didn't lift it over the keeper in any case. But the Ian Wright connotation, just the hard running mongrel, style of player, I get a little bit more. I have been super impressed with him, and I know that's not some mind blowing statement. It's stating the bloody obvious, but you really get a feeling with his level, the level of tenacity that he brings, it adds an X factor. And I think it really shows, with from what we've had previously, we've always had flawed strikers. I can't actually remember the last number 9 that was
Van Persie.
Well, that would be it. That would be it. Who was a true performer in that elite style. But, he can do it all, and it's effort and fitness based, So it's that level of tenacity. Aubameyang was more of a passive player in that he was low touch. So when the game opened up in his way, he was elite, but he couldn't change the game himself. Lacazette was almost there, but never broke through to that, that higher echelon of influence. And as he bulked up and his ass got bigger and his thighs got bigger, he was able to be more of a hold-up player, but he wasn't able to influence the game
The
so
impressive
much.
thing about Jesus, I think, is that across that game, I saw him on the wings releasing players inside, which is things that, to an extent, you would have seen someone like an Alexis Sanchez do. We saw the ball into him with him backing in and turning players.
I loved that one.
We saw
that was my favorite one. Even though there was no goal.
He didn't get it, but to me, that was like, we haven't had that for so long, because Lacazette would back into someone, but he never had the explosion to actually go on with it and run on with it and finish.
But it's also the mind. He had that played out. He headed it to himself, stuck his ass into Johnny Evans, and spun him on the turn. It was genius. It's someone that is at the peak of their powers, their confidence, and I think their fitness. And I think that really.
And
that
I think
really makes
more than all of those things, I think he's been put into a system where he's been told, we have bought you as the guy, the main guy. You're not going anywhere. We haven't gone and bought in, another player underneath you who's potentially going to take your spot. There seems to be a real, he understands that this is on him and he's carrying that. The thing that I liked most about it is I loved when he got subbed off and he looked so fucking pissed off. I love it when a player's got a brace and they're walking off and they are so pissed off. Dazzy, you're nodding along.
But he gave Eddie double high fives and gave him a hug, though. So he wasn't
but his body language,
wasn't a petulant.
Darren, his body language was like, I should have fucking put that game to bed.
I think there's two things that I would just like to add on. Because I agree.
Darren agrees with everything, but his internet also cabbaged out. Are you back?
Can you? Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
that's my wife calling.
We heard the last bit we heard was, we agree with everything you said, Max. You are a genius.
Both of you. But there's two things you're missing. One, I think, where he is better than all of those players that you've mentioned, except Bergkamp, but including him, right, is his technical ability. You know, he is a very, very good footballer. And Van Persie was a very good target man and a very strong man and could shoot a ball. Ian Wright was very tenacious, etc. Was very tenacious and had all those, was a poacher and had wonderful finishing qualities. But Jesus is a better footballer than all of them. You know, he dribbles past players, he can beat players, and none of them really had that. Bergkamp did, obviously. The other thing I think that's really important to mention, and you touched on it when he went off, and he double high-fived Eddie Nketiah. I don't know if you heard his interview on Sky after the game. He mentioned Eddie Nketiah. He said, we have two great strikers at this club. You know, he actually
leadership straight away, isn't it?
You know, and there was no need for him. You know, he said the obvious things, like he felt like he should have had a hat trick and those sort of things. But he actually mentioned his rival for his own position and told everyone how good he was. How does Eddie feel when he listens to that? He's going to be picked up. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful man.
And I thought Eddie was quite good for 10 minutes when he came on. He had a really good left foot shot at the keeper. He pounded one. And the thing, because I didn't watch a lot of preseason, though Darren didn't watch a lot of preseason either. But I thought Eddie looked about 5 kilos heavier as well.
Yeah, they all seem to have bulked out a bit. Sorry, Toby. I was just going to say that there's a lot of them look like they've really improved their strength training over the summer, and they all look. You know, that I watched the Invincibles on the Arsenal website this morning. There's a Sky thing out. There was one on Dennis Bergkamp, which really you've got to watch, just all about that goal at Newcastle. And then there was like a 10-minute thing on the Invincibles with just Vieira, Freddie Ljungberg, Dennis Bergkamp talking about that era, and they were a big side, and nobody wanted when you're in the ton alongside that Invincible side. And I've thought for the last 2 or 3 years we looked a bit small as a side, you know, and you go up against some of these bigger sides, and you know, historically the Stokes and the Burnleys and the teams that are going to bully you out of the way. With Saliba and a few of these others all bulking up, we don't look like a side that's just going to be bullied anymore. People aren't going to turn up and think, right, getting hard on this lot, because I think we can handle that now. Karen.
Yeah, I agree. So coming back to that a couple of points back, I thought Eddie came on and he got about a 12-minute run, and he had pretty much 4 chances on goal. You know, 1 offside, couple of shots, and a near miss. So I think that's pretty good. Going back an extra point to that, I love the way that Jesus interplays with all the different positions, and that's my idea of a quality footballer.
And that's only going to get better.
So when we compare to someone as selfish as an Alexis Sanchez, as opposed to a Jesus or Jesus, however you say it, his interplay with all of those around him and his selflessness, as well as his ability to put the ball in the back of the net, that really is what excites me. And like you said, Daz, the leadership qualities where he's buying in already. And as a 25-year-old, he's already got the emotional intelligence to be bigging up those around him to create, you know, a harmonious, front-footed team, you know, all heading in the same direction.
The key thing you've just said there as well, which excites me so much, and you've got to remember, this is a player that half an hour after we signed him, I put £20 on him winning the Golden Boot this year. That's how confident I am in this type of player joining Arsenal, really. But the point that you made there, which really is so exciting, he's 25 years old. He is now coming into the prime that a striker has. You know, we could see 4 or 5 years of one of the world's best strikers at Arsenal again. And that's the difference that we haven't had. We haven't scored any goals for the last 2 or 3 years. And as you mentioned, Alexis Sanchez, I didn't like Alexis Sanchez particularly. I thought he was a very individual player that was brilliant at times, but he was all for himself and not for the team. And
so Toby and I, Darren,
press when he wants, dribble when he wants.
Darren, you know, Toby and I have both been well known on so many platforms for saying that we weren't a fan of Sanchez. not that we weren't a fan of the individual things he did for the club, but my stance on it was always that I didn't feel that he contributed to those around him. He wasn't transformational to those around him. He didn't make people around him considerably better. Did he improve the team with his skill? Yes, but he didn't have wonderful interplay, and he would just cut in off his right foot, let someone run past him, and then either smash one into nothingness or cump one into the top corner. There's a couple of other, so obviously it would be remiss of us not to have a conversation about the possible trajectory of Gabriel Martinelli. For me, he was man of the match. I thought everything he touched was just gold. He's another one who I think looks a little bit, not necessarily bigger, like he's bulked up, but a little bit older. I know it's a stupid thing because he's a year older, he's a season older, but he looks a little bit older. And I go back to last season, I'll put this to Toby. I go back to last season when people were screaming about Martinelli not being in the team. You remember he came into the team, even after he scored his wonder goal against Chelsea, and he was pulled out of the team, and there was this narrative around that Arteta had said he didn't do the right things, he didn't defend, he pressed by himself, and he didn't play in a system. I just think that's an opportunity to look at less the short-term mentality of so many fans saying, go and put this guy in today, and look at how much of a long-term project this is, both as a group of players, but also as individual trajectories of certain players. Martinelli is really now becoming a player who is doing everything that the coach wants, and he's still developing his raw talent. And I think I saw a quote today. I've forgotten who it was from. Might have been from Jesus, or it might have been from Zinchenko. It was one of the guys who'd come from City, and they said that he was possibly the best talent at that age that they had ever seen.
Yeah, I think definitely he is developing his in-game acumen, let's say. So, the thing with Martinelli is that everything's dialed up to 11. But that would also be his downfall. Some of the injuries came from that level of fatigue, of never knowing when just to cool the jets slightly. Everything was, 100% all the time. So I think that's coming into it. Don't forget, he's also had 2-3 seasons of in again, out again, on again, off again with injuries. So he's just polishing that raw talent a little bit. And look, I think it's a pretty dynamic front three at the moment, especially with his hard running and dribbling. That battle with him and what's his name, Farfan. Fuck, that was a wonderful battle. And
he bummed him as well.
Well,
he
all credit to that right back though. He never gave up. Is that his name, Farfan? Did I get that?
Fafana.
Farfan was another one. Yeah, Fafana. I thought that was great, and I thought that battle was shit hot for the game. But he's another one that's improved with Jesus as well. So, it's not just the player, it's the system as well. And maybe
it's more credit. It's more credit
maybe
to
this
Arteta.
season's his season.
No, I think that was the point I was getting at. I really wanted to just give Arteta that piece of approval to say, when everyone thought this guy was complete, you pulled him out of the team and made him work on the small elements of his game. And now we're seeing the outcomes of that, rather than just taking a Man U approach to an extent, which is seeing talent and saying, well, go play and go fucking do it,
Yeah.
And
I think, can I just say one thing? I think there might be a time in a few months where he gets pulled out of the team again.
But that's what a squad's for. And this is what none of the fucking fans online seem to realize. None of them seem to realize that you have a fucking squad.
Yeah,
and
but they're idiots.
Periods,
the world is full of cunts with phones and opinions. So, it's not fucking rocket surgery.
I saw someone put online, maybe Saka isn't what we thought he was, and, playing in a better team, he's not shining as brightly. And I put up a tweet, Darren, after the game saying how heartening it was for Saka to be allowed to be quiet, because for the last 2 seasons, he hasn't been given that possibility to be quiet. If Saka wasn't playing, if he wasn't, leading the team as a 19-year-old, then we were shit. And I really quite enjoyed the fact that he just sort of was out there on the right wing. He did a couple of really nice things. He had a couple of nice shots. But the ability to not have every single game rest on his very young shoulders, I think is really going to allow Saka to improve this season.
Yeah, I agree. I'll jump in because Darren doesn't seem to be there.
Cabbage
for the
internet.
minute. But yeah, look, I agree completely. The weight isn't on his shoulders. And
So
look,
can I just let you know, I'm sorry to interrupt. I've just, the reason I'm, as you both know, my house is in the middle of a forest fire in Spain at the moment, and I've just had 2 video calls from Spain, and I'm just trying to check if anyone sent me a message to see if my house has survived. It's in the middle of one of those horrendous. The perimeter of the fire is now 65 kilometres. It's huge, and we're right at on the edge of it. So I've just had 2 video calls from Spain. And much as I love Arsenal, I love my house and I love my wife, and I just was trying to check to see if both of them are okay. So if I do disappear for a minute, I can hear you, but you may not see me for a minute.
That's fine. I can't believe that you're still smiling and talking about Arsenal. So
cancer and no house, still smiling. The only thing that could stop him is another bout of herpes.
I've still got it. You can't get rid of it.
So we covered this, but 2 pills and no one will know, Darren. We covered this last week. It'll hide it. It's kind of like kicking sand over a shit on the beach. There's still a shit there, but you can't see it until you stand in it. Words of wisdom. Toby.
Excellent.
Continue on.
Yeah, so
Deco?
so it was. You're right. It is heartening that the burden of the team's success doesn't fall on such a young player's shoulders every time. So and part of me still does wonder whether there is a future of him playing deeper as a number 8. But that's
I've never been able to see that. Like a player like him, I can see moving inside into a 10 role, but the 10 seems to be dead. 10's a fucking dead position now.
Yeah, I don't think 10s happen so much. I just mean because
one player who I'm not fearful for, because there's so many fucking games. Right, there are so many games. There's Europa League and there's FA Cup, and he's so young. But one player who I, to an extent, worry about them reaching their full potential in this team is Emile Smith-Rowe, because it is just overloaded in the wide positions. It's over. We don't play a natural 10 anymore, which I still think is Emile's best position. And I wonder how he's going to find a consistent starting position in this team as long as there are Erdegaards, Xhakas playing these 8 roles. And as Darren said last week, supposedly this new guy that we bought as well is like the fucking shit. Edu, I looked it up after Darren told me about it, and the comment is like, if you think Jesus is good, wait until you see, what's his fucking name?
Vieira.
So I wonder how ESR is going to be able to get in with a really, really informed Martinelli on the left.
I don't worry at all.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You just said yourself, there's so many games this year, and what a great situation to be in, where we've got our first 11 at the moment because they're all playing extremely well. But with Tierney to come in for Zinchenko and Tomiyasu to come in for White to the right back, Emile Smith-Rowe to come in on either flank, Vieira to come in for Erdegaard, and Nketiah to come in for Jesus. This isn't what we were talking about last year when the bench was bereft of any talent, and our best on the bench was an El Neni to come on for Xhaka. We are very different. Now, if we can keep these players happy, and that's the key, because at the moment they're all bought in, they all want to believe in the project.
That's more what I'm getting at, Darren, is keeping people happy.
Yeah, but at the moment, if you're Emile Smith-Rowe, it's not like you're the best player in the club and you're thinking, well, I should be playing, and getting all sulky. He's looking at that team that's winning and looking at Martinelli and looking at Erdegaard and thinking, right, I've got to be better to get back into this team. And they will have their opportunities. Something that Arteta has done throughout his tenure at the club is when players have played well, he's kept them in the side. And at the moment, I don't think we'll have an issue. 6 months down the line, maybe offers coming in January again from Villa for Emil Smith-Rowe, and they want to build a team around him. Maybe his head will be turned. But these are Arsenal boys. They're loving it at the club. Listen to all of the things they're saying. They're enjoying going to training. They're excited by what's happening there. Even Xhaka said in his interview last week that I'm upset that I've only got 2 years left on my contract. What sort of comment is that from Xhaka, who was hated by the club and wanted to leave? He's now saying that he wants to be there for the rest of his career because of what's happening around him. I don't think there's anything to be worried about. It's a very, very healthy situation.
Toby, is Emil Smith-Rowe a bit of a risshole as far as injuries? I mean...
No,
a lot of groins, a lot of hamstrings, a lot of soft tissues early in his career.
Look, he could be, but that should be working against the fear that you're kind of alluding to at the moment, because he's not only is he potentially a biscuit and easily broken, he was overplayed. He was overplayed as fuck last season, and then had to play fucking England under-21s for fuck's sake, and then didn't get a break. So
when's the World Cup?
So
November, December.
Fucking whatever. I don't care about the World Cup.
Well, it plays into what you're saying, because you've got that again, and you're going to have more game time in Saka and more game time in Smith-Rowe.
Yeah, of course. I'm not really acknowledging the World Cup because it's so fucking stupid.
I've never wanted to watch World Cups. I've never wanted to watch a World Cup so much where Brazil and England do so badly.
Well,
get them out in the group stage and get them home and wrapped up in cotton wool.
Totally. But look,
I mean, this is the problem with international football now, isn't it? This is what exists now. It's that international football used to be the pinnacle. International football used to be when the best players from all of the teams came together. I mean, I was a huge fan of international football in the late 90s and early 2000s. But club football has taken such precedence now. It's such an animal. It is so important. The World Cup here means so fucking little. And all you're doing is watching it thinking, oh, God, don't fucking get injured.
Well, especially when it's during the European season. That's the worst part about it. It's going to be hot as fuck. The Northern European countries aren't going to cope well with that. I mean, do you remember how much of a beetroot the fat cunt Wayne Rooney was in South Africa in 2010? Because he'd had a couple of weeks off, drunk too much beer and eaten all the pies. And then his first... Well, he did that earlier. But my point being, it's an unnecessary distraction that I don't think any of us want this season. And coming back to the point that I was making a long time ago, was that I'm not concerned with Smith-Rowe for what Darren was saying. He's a junior. He loves the club. He's still young as fuck. He overperformed. He was probably in the team sooner than he would have anticipated anyway. And he's been injured as fuck from the back end of last season from being overplayed, especially with the England under-21 stuff. So I don't worry about it, and I also think he's quite a versatile player. We haven't worked out his proper position yet. He's a wonderful left wing forward. He could definitely go deeper. He does play in a hybrid number 10 role. And I know you said number 10 doesn't exist the way it did, but Ødegaard definitely doesn't play as a number 8. He plays as, halfway between those two positions. So I'm not concerned. Darren.
Looking into my positive crystal ball, what I see happening this season, just purely based on pre-season, what I've seen in the first 2 games, is we're going to go out and attack teams for that first 15, 20 minutes, which we used to do when we were good. And I think, although it didn't happen at all last year, I really do foresee there will be many games this year where we actually do get a lead, and a fairly comfortable lead by half time. That is a very positive outlook. We know football can bite you in the arse when you say something like that. And with the ability now to use 5 substitutions, I think we'll see a slight change now, because I do think that as the season gets into its 2 games a week, we will see 5 subs being used, and he can bring on players like Emil Smith-Rowe for a 45-minute half. And I think we might see 2-3 changes at half time in games that we're comfortably winning.
Has the 5 subs thing been brought in purely because there's a World Cup year, or is this a permanent change?
It was brought in all over Europe. Last year they kept it from was it the European Championships? They kept the 5 subs rule in every major league in Europe except for the Premier League. Premier League voted it down. The smaller clubs felt it was an advantage to the bigger clubs who had bigger squads, and rightfully so. However, this year, with the World Cup coming in, the Premier League decided to just fall in line with the rest of Europe and allow the 5 subs rule.
I love the 5 subs thing. I love the 5 subs thing. I think it's great. I think it gets more utilization of a squad. You're able to use your younger players more. If you do go out and get a big lead, you're able to get game time into people rather than having 2 subs and sitting there fucking petrified. If you make a third one, you're going to get an injury.
And the key slight thing with the rule that is very important is it doesn't mean you can make 5 subs 5 times in a half to waste time. They have to be done, I think, twice in the second half. Don't quote me on that, but you can't just go 1 sub, 5 minutes later another sub, so you're not just running the clock down. You have to do them in groups, so you can't just do that. And that's really key, so it's trying to stop people using that rule just to slow and make football boring. You have to use that. I think it's only twice in the second half you can make substitutes unless there's an injury or something.
Yeah, and I think with the 5 sub thing, there's definitely logic behind that. It would favour the bigger clubs.
Yes,
but there's also more than one way to skin a cat in football. So if you can have 5 subs and be a lower team, but have like 5 fit as fuck, battle hardened substitutes, there would be a way to counteract the counterattack yourself.
It also allows you to hold call me old here, but and going back to our Pro Evo competition days, Toby, it allows you to hold a Pippo Inzaghi in your team. Do you know what I mean? Like an old fucking killer, and he doesn't have the fucking legs anymore.
I was going to say more like an Andy fucking Carroll or something like that. Like an absolute, just change it all
biscuit.
up.
Fucking biscuit. 5 minutes a game.
Yes, a biscuit. But anyway, someone who their physique is so different that you can.
I'm going with a 40-year-old Inzaghi. I think you signed Inzaghi to your 2002 Pro Evo team and pulled him off the bench and scored 25 goals with him.
While you two are just getting completely off the subject and talking about things that we don't care about, there's a couple of things I think we should mention on this podcast. Obviously, it's been a wonderful weekend of Premier League football with, there's 3 things really to talk about. The Chelsea-Tottenham game, which had so much incident. Manchester United, which is just incredible. And I don't know if you watched Liverpool last night, their new signing. Have you seen that over in Australia?
No, I just saw that he got.
Just saw the result.
I just saw that he got bummed by the only white bloke in the team, Anderson.
He headbutted him, although he was about a foot shorter, so it hit him in the chin and got sent off. It's going to be a wonderful. This is his introduction to the Premier League. There was just he got shoved in the back, so he turned around and headbutted the guy in the chin and got sent off and will miss 3 games. Liverpool have got a bit of problem there. They've got lots of injuries. Again, Milner was playing. He's their first choice substitute. I think he started last night. Well, I didn't watch the game. I only watched the highlights this morning.
He's 57 now, as you said last week. Still going.
And Manchester City looked very strong, but Liverpool started with 2 draws. And it just shows how good our result at Crystal Palace was.
Well, you know what? If we can get off to a really good start, like a really decent start, it just takes some of the pressure off. Because teams going to peak and trough throughout the season. I said in the podcast last week, whether we finish 3rd, 4th, or 5th, which I think are the likely 3 finishing positions for us, I really think that's going to come down to whose key players are fitter for longer and who gets off to a really good start. For the last 5 minutes, boys, I wanted to talk about Judases. Judases across the history of Arsenal. Which ones have hurt you? which ones have hurt you the most? And you're not allowed to say Sol Campbell being.
Oh, I was just going to say Sol Campbell.
No,
It was definitely Sol Campbell.
No, we've been through this so many times.
He was
it
Judas.
never gets us good ratings, Darren. Everyone just ends up saying what's wrong with Darren. So I'm putting an end to you saying Sol Campbell. But anyway, I just wanted to go around the room. Obviously, Darren's been an Arsenal fan for a very long time. And I wanted to find out which one really fucking stung. Which one stung you the most? I mean, a player in their prime who signed for someone else.
Van Persie.
Well, you know how I feel about Van Persie. And when I was doing some work with Arsenal, and they were publicising my podcast that I was doing in India and being very supportive. And then I said, "Can't you officially promote me and put me out on your Twitter feed?" Because they did that once, which was fantastic. And they called me into the office at Highbury House and were chatting away and said, "We really love what you do. We really love the positivity that we hear, but we can't officially support you." And I said, "Well, why can't you support me?" I said, "I'm a very positive, very loyal Arsenal fan." And they said, "Well, you mentioned in last week's show that you wouldn't piss on Robbie Van Persie if he was on fire." And unfortunately, that's not a line the club can take.
Yeah.
My Judas.
So your one bit of honesty cost you a living.
Yeah. I think the first one is you've thrown that question out, so I haven't really had time to think. And if you're not going to let me have Sol Campbell and Toby's had Robin Van Persie, going back in the day, Frank Stapleton, our centre forward in '79, was a fantastic player for us, really, really top of his game. And he left us in his prime to join Manchester United. And they weren't bigger than us. They were a big side, but they weren't bigger than us. And that one I could never understand. And then I heard that he was a Manchester United fan. And as a kid, I just couldn't get my head around that my hero, the guy, if we had names on shirts, I would have had his name on the back of my shirt. We didn't. I'm not even sure we had numbers in those days. But when he left the club, that one hurt me. That one really, really hurt.
Mine would be, and it's an obvious one, but no one's done it yet. Mine would be Cashley to Chelsea.
Not his fault.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not his fault.
That's a good one.
Not his fault. That one is all down to Arsenal Football Club. Because we offered him, if you go into the depths of that, and of course I was very involved at the time, and we loved Ashley Cole, and he was what the equivalent of our Howell End boys. He'd come up through. He was. We were a very, very good side.
He'd stuck Ronaldo in his pocket.
We offered, I mean, I can't remember the exact details, but it was somewhere along the lines of, we offered him 55 grand a week to sign a new contract for Arsenal. And when he went in to sign the contract, we said, oh, actually, we changed our minds and offered him 50. And I think it was as simple as something like that we just reneged on a promise and tried to be cheap with one of the best players in English football. And he got approached by Chelsea at the time. They blew our wages out the water. He was so upset with the club and the manager at the time that he just said no. He said, and they just took the piss out of him. And I don't think he wanted to leave. I don't think he wanted to join Chelsea. I think he would have loved to have been a Tony Adams and stayed at Arsenal all his career. But we messed him about. We pissed him off. And you've all worked for companies at some stage, I'm sure, where you know your worth, and then suddenly they try to take the piss. And
Still
you just
it
lose
hurt.
all faith.
Still it hurt, and he was a Judas. Yeah. And I still think Ashley Cole probably gets in the team of the century.
I agree.
He is incredible. Yeah.
Best left back. Well, certainly best left back I've ever seen in the Premier League. I think he was the best left back in the world for a considerable period of time.
I also think he was a game-changing left back. I mean, he was. I mean, don't get me wrong. He wasn't a pure attacking fullback like you get in today's game, but defensively, he was just phenomenal, and his ability to go up and down the pitch. So, in hearing that, Darren, I didn't know that those subtleties of that story. So
my understanding of that
makes
story,
me dislike.
My understanding of that story was that we offered him a contract, and Chelsea offered him a bigger contract, and that he took the money. And I've always called
the story I hear, he turned up to sign the contract to Arsenal, and they changed the details and lowered what they'd offered him, what they'd promised him.
Well, Cashley, I'm sorry I called you a fucking cunt every day of your existence after you left us. Any other special mentions for Judases? Adebayor? Judas? Definitely a fucking Judas.
Yeah, but I don't think I was so unhappy that he
Nasri,
left
I was
because I never
upset with
liked
Nasri.
him that much. No,
I
I
was
never
upset
liked
with
Nasri.
Nasri
I never
because
liked
I
Nasri.
didn't like Nasri until he had a wonderful fucking season for us the year before he went to City. He was superb the year before he went to City. Sanya fucking cut me deep as well. Sanya cut me really deep because
Yeah, but
They
Sanya
bought
was,
Sanya when
was
he
at the
was
end.
on the down.
Yeah, I was going to say
down low.
Sanya was at the end of his career. He saw out his contract.
I don't think it was at the end of his career. It was
he
still
got-
excellent
he-
for us when he left.
He was
No,
34
but we
when he
and
left.
we had
He
Bellerin
wasn't.
coming through. I'm sure we had Bellerin coming through when
Yeah.
he left, and it was it was towards the end of his. He went and played for Manchester City. Did well there for a few years, but he left with a crowd clapping him off. Sanya was great
Yeah.
for Arsenal.
Any others? Any others? Anything I've forgotten? Modern history? Judas?
No, I didn't want Gallus to ever come to our club, so I was happy when he
He's a
left.
cunt.
But
He
he's
was a
cunt.
Judas.
Sol
Yeah,
Campbell.
Adebayor, I had warmed to him. He was
What
like
about Giroud? Is
he
Giroud
was
a
an Henri
Judas?
replacement. No, we pushed him out.
I never
And
said a
then he
bad
went
word
and
about
did-
Olivier.
And then he went and did a bang up job.
He
at
did.
Chelsea.
Yeah, I think the time where
I really slagged off Giroud for years.
I think the
He was my
time-
buddy.
I think the time Giroud upset us all was after they beat us 4-0 in the Europa League final, and he came out and was disrespectful to the club. And you sort of think, well, hang on, you were with us for years. The fans loved you. We paid your wages for a long time. There was no reason for him to be so up Chelsea. It's like not celebrating when you score against your old club. It's just a little bit of respect that we like, and he didn't show that respect.
So obviously, the reason why I'm carrying on down this question path is the imminent arrival of Aubameyang at Chelsea. Left Arsenal as the captain on a free under a cloud of conjecture. He's got Arsenal tattooed on his arm. He's gone to Barca on a free, and Barca are likely looking to try and offload him now
For 23 million.
23 million. They're looking at pocketing it. It's interesting. I put up a thing saying, well, you're a Judas, and now I wouldn't piss in your ass if your shit was on fire. And I got mixed fucking reviews on that, though, as you get with Arsenal fans and you get on Twitter, regardless. But, some people have written, he's within his rights to play wherever he wants. He's got a relationship with Tuchel. I just thought it was in poor taste. I think being a club captain and leaving and making statements, that you love the club and always have a place in your heart, and then going and signing for fucking Chelsea is the shit Judas act.
I think two things to mention there, though. One, if you listen to his statement, he doesn't want to leave Barcelona, so it's not him driving the move. So a bit of respect for him there. He has come out and said, I want to stay at Barcelona and fight for my place. And secondly, if he goes to Chelsea, we shouldn't worry because we know he's not very good.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried about what he's going to do. I know what he's going to do at Chelsea, and I think he's actually going to suck in Chelsea's system.
He's not very good. We've just watched him for 18 months be a passenger in our side. He's not good anymore. He was a very good player for us. But when he's not scoring, he is a passenger. When he's not scoring, it was like playing with 10 men. If he has a good spell at Chelsea and score goals, great. But if they're going to buy players on their decline, a bit like Manchester United buying Ronaldo, what is the point?
Would you boo him? Would you boo him?
No way.
No,
I don't even think.
I fucking would. I'd boo the shit out of him.
I don't.
He is
even
irrelevant
think
to me.
To leave Arsenal. He was paid out of his contract.
I
don't think Aubameyang is a
shit
bad
out of
guy
that
for a
cunt.
second. I just don't think he could do what we needed
You're
him
all
to
so
do.
nice.
He can get in his gold car and his gold tracksuit and fuck off now. Okay, he's not one of ours. I wouldn't boo him. I wouldn't boo him because he doesn't mean that much to me anymore. We have moved on. He is the last.
How can the Chelsea fans take him with open arms? He took an FA Cup from them. He single-handedly took an FA Cup
because they've prostituted themselves. They've prostituted themselves to the world of football for the last 15 years. They won't care as long as they win. That club. How can you get involved and get excited by watching?
And I don't think he'll be very good anyway.
I think he will.
So,
I think he'll score in every game in his first 10 games because that's what Aubameyang does.
Chelsea don't play in that way. I was reading an article that their forwards are really stifled the way they play. Tuchel plays like a back three still, a 3-4-3, and they don't have the space that they require. So it's a funny system. I think Raheem Sterling has come in and looked pretty good in that system, but none of their number 9s work. None of them.
I'm not particularly worried about Chelsea this year. I don't think Tottenham are an outstanding team, and I thought Tottenham were the better team against them.
No, that's nonsense. Did you watch that game? Chelsea dominated for an hour. Should have been about 5.
I only watched the 30-minute mini.
No. It was really Chelsea. I watched the game with a Chelsea fan and a load of Tottenham fans. I was in a pub full of Tottenham fans. Spurs got out of that, and it shows how good Spurs are these days, because they were terrible. They were nowhere near Chelsea for the majority. First 15 minutes was fairly even. The rest of it was all Chelsea, and Spurs managed to hang on in there. And like good teams do, they nicked one right at the end.
I only watched the first 20 minutes, and then I watched the mini. So that explains that.
Yeah, it does. Martin, go on,
isn't it a Conte way of playing, though? It's unattractive. You hang in there and you score the goals when you need them.
And nearly a punch on. Gotta love a punch on. Us rugby league fans love a fucking punch on, and they tried to punch on.
Can we finish before you go into rugby league, which nobody cares about outside of this group? Can we just go on to two things? One, Manchester United, and two, how relieved are you that we avoided signing Lisandro Martinez? The 5'9" centre half.
Did you see the fucking video they put up on Twitter of the little kid? They let him I think they let him come on in a testimonial. He was one of the players' sons or something. There's all these giant players, and he's little running next to them, and they're like Lisandro Martinez versus Brentford.
I thought when somebody says from a distance, I think they said he looked like Bilbo Baggins.
Well, when we were in for him, Darren, I was like, this reeks of another Mustafi. And
No. I think come and listen to this and come back to me later in the season. I think he's an extremely good footballer. He looks the best player in there. No, listen. And he looks a very good footballer. And I think over the course of the season, you will see that he is a very, very good player. However, we wanted to put him where Zinchenko is. We wanted him as a left back, somebody who could play drifting into the middle, the way he's got Zinchenko playing at the moment. So as a left back, it doesn't matter how tall you are. As a centre half at Manchester United in the Premier League, it does. And we've got to be just so relieved that we managed to avoid that one and get Zinchenko for less money. And it seems like really another good bit of business from Arsenal, not getting sucked into a transfer war where we could have paid an extra 20-25 million to secure the signing of a player that didn't want to join Arsenal Football Club. Really, really good bit of business by us.
Exactly. So he can have those cunts. That's absolutely fine. What about Tielemans? Did he play himself out of a contract as well? Have we dodged a bullet that way?
I thought Tielemans was pretty good for Leicester. I thought he used the ball well. He had a couple of nice touches. He spread the ball. I just don't think Leicester are a very good team. But I said to Darren, I'm really reticent of taking people out of the Leicester system, because that Leicester system, I said this last week, reminds me of Pochettino's Southampton system, where those players playing in a very specific system looked really good. And as soon as they came out of that system, whether it was Wanyama's or Schneider, was it Schneider? Was that the two?
Schneiderlin,
Wanyama, all those guys came out of that system and looked fucking average. So not too worried about it. Anyway, we've done an hour.
I was just going to say, just personally, go on, finish it. I was going to say, personally, I still think the Tielemans thing may happen. It just depends. If Leicester lose Fofana, lose Maddison, then they may not be so happy to lose Tielemans. But he's on his last year of contract.
Ryan Maddison, Darren, everyone loves old Ryan. Toby, who's Ryan Maddison?
He plays for Parramatta.
Fuck, I knew it was a rugby league player. I knew I'd fucked that up.
Go on then, Max, wind us up.
Well, Man U is shit. Tottenham a shit. Chelsea is shit. Aubameyang's a fucking Judas. Granit Xhaka is the one chosen king. He's the god of football. He's never going to fuck up. We're never going to turn on anyone ever again. Sunshines, rainbows, and strawberry-scented queefs. All good things. These are all some of my favorite things. And this has been an ArseBros podcast, especially the bit about strawberry queefs. Hold on, I forgot to do the fucking banner thing. Wait. Wait.
This is an ArseBrothers production. Follow us on Twitter at the ArseBrothers. Get all our content on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and SoundCloud at ArseBros. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to smash that subscribe button.